Hey folks, Jeff here at Back to Country. Unfortunately today I'm in the city, but that doesn't mean we don't have work to do. So today we're working on the RV. The last few trips we made, she's been getting a little warm in the rear end. I don't think anything's wrong with it, but it's a 96 model, and as far as I know, the rear end fluids have never been changed. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna drain the fluids out of the rear end and put new oil in it and get her ready to travel again. So stick with us and let's see how it goes. Okay, so we're set up underneath the RV now. You can see here's the rear differential. So basically we're going to remove this cover in order to drain the oil. Before we do that, we want to make sure that the drain plug can be removed, because we're going to have to refill this when we're done, and if that's stuck in there and we can't remove it, then boy, that'd create a mess. So, and it is stuck pretty good, it's pretty solid. It doesn't want to budge. Okay, so there's our first challenge. Always something. And of course, being in the city, you can hear all the damn noise in the background, people mowing their lawns and everything. Another reason I hate the city, when I'm at the property, if there's noise, I'm usually making it. If neighbors are making any noise, they're far enough away that it ain't so damn loud and annoying. Okay, so this video's probably gonna suck. But that's the way it goes. Of course, I can't move around under here very good. Ah, there we go. Okay, so that broke free, and that's really all we needed to do, is make sure that it broke free. I'm not using any fancy tools here. The bolts are 9/16 bolts, so I just brought a couple of ratchets down, and we're just doing this the old-fashioned way, not breaking out any impact wrenches or anything like that. We're just keeping it nice and simple. Now we'll see if we can start to break these nuts free. And I'm just going to kind of work my way around and see if they all break free. I'm not going to really loosen them yet. I've got a drain pan here, but obviously we're not draining any oil yet. So at this point, like I say, I just want to make sure all the bolts are free. Know if we've got any that are going to present a challenge. So far, every one of them has come free with not too much resistance. That's good. Like I say, I don't have a lot of room to work with here. I just used the hydraulic jacks on the RV to lift it as high as I could and let this rear end hang down a little bit. If you're curious about this rear end, it's a Dana 8200 with 410 gearing in it. In these RVs back in '96, well, the year this is, I guess they were using a ambulance package. So it's an E350, and it's a dually, and so that's the rear end they were putting in these. Oh, Whiskey's here checking on me. Okay, so all of the nuts came free, no problem. That's a good thing. So I was using a 1/2-inch drive to just break them free. Now I'll just drop down to the 3/8 and start taking them out. I'm taking these two out first because they've got the tag with them, and so I just want to get that out of the way. It looks like this may have been done before. My assumption was that it had probably never been done, just because a lot of them aren't. However, when I look at the seal on this, it appears to be sealed with silicone, and typically out of the factory they use a gasket. So the fact that this has a silicone seal leads me to believe that it has actually been done before, so that's a good thing. Hopefully it has, because you know, it would hate to open this thing up and find chocolate pudding in there. That wouldn't be a good thing. It'd be nice to see some good quality, fairly clean oil and not a lot of debris on the magnet, telling us it's in pretty good shape. So far it's coming apart pretty easy. That's the way we want it. And that's rarely the case with me. Usually everything has to be super difficult, and you know, I end up getting out a torch and heating things up and all kind of craziness. But so far this seems to be just fine. The tightest part was that drain plug. And once it broke free, it's all good. I suspect it had some Loctite on it or something, because honestly none of this looks rusted or anything. It's actually in really good condition. Bolts are all clean. Like I say, they don't appear to be rusted. That's good. For a 96, this is 2021. That's, you know, 25 years worth. That's pretty good. So at least on the outside, for 25 years old, this is in remarkably good condition. Got a little bit of oil starting to drain out, so we make sure we got our drain pan underneath it to catch that. I don't want to make a mess in the driveway. Not that I haven't done it before, but Still try to avoid it. Now this actually has a drain plug underneath, so in theory you could drain all this without removing this back cover. The downside of doing that is if you don't remove the back cover, then you don't get to look inside and, you know, see how the rear end and everything looks. So I prefer to be able to do an inspection while I'm at it. So this last bolt, the top one, I'm not going to pull off all the way, and that'll prevent the cover from falling when I break it free. So I removed it, now I'm screwing it back in to get it in far enough so the threads grab it. Okay. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring a putty knife down here to see if I can break this seal, so see if I get my knife in there. But yeah, I don't want to break my knife trying to do this. But you can see the silicone. Okay, I'm gonna have to get something else to take that apart. I'm not gonna risk breaking my knife jamming it in there. Okay, we're back. Grabbed a few different tools to see if we can pry this off. Got a thin head little screwdriver here that doesn't want to go easy. This thing is really sealed good on here, so we'll see what it's going to take to actually pry this thing apart. Like zero space between this. It's on there tight. Just that silicone seal. Maybe that's the downside of not using a gasket. It doesn't provide enough space when you got to take it off. I mentioned how much I dislike living in oh man. There we go. Okay, so it doesn't look too good. Definitely needs changed. Look at that. That's pretty nasty. It's a little bit thick. Definitely dark and dirty. Okay, so the rear end does appear to be in pretty good condition. I don't see any issues with it at all. The ring looks great. Everything inside looks good. But the oil does look thick and pretty dirty, so definitely needs change. Okay, so here's the cover. Now, like I say, what I noticed taking it off is that there's no gasket on this. It's just a silicone seal. And typically it doesn't come that way from the factory, so that's why I suspect that it was done before. But boy, looking at this oil that was in here, it sure doesn't look like it was done before. I mean, that oil's pretty nasty actually. And here we look at, there's a magnet around the plug, and here's all the filings and everything that have stuck to that magnet. Now normally that's what you see from break-in on a new one, but that's exactly why they put those magnets in there, is so that it collects that, and you can see that it'll pull it right back off my finger. So that's a lot of filings. I mean, they're very fine filings. Typically, like I say, that's what comes from the break-in period when the thing's new. So it's not nothing to be concerned about, but just another indicator that tells me that you know, it doesn't appear to have ever been changed. So interesting, because I've never seen one out of the factory that was silicone instead of using a gasket. So maybe that's just how they did this model, I don't know. And that's of course how we're going to do it when we put it back together, but definitely interesting. Okay, so we're back again. So if you're wondering what we've been doing, we cleaned everything up. So you can see here's the outer cover. It's all cleaned up good. And we cleaned all this area around the housing. And basically what we did, we used brake clean and parts brush and a razor blade. Scrape all that silicone and everything off real good, clean everything up, and get it ready to put the new stuff on. So here's what we're using for the new stuff. It's black Permatex silicone. It's RTV silicone. It says it's ready in 90 minutes to return to service, so sounds like quick drying to me. Again, it's kind of uncomfortable under here. I don't have enough room to work, but you know, that's the way it goes. You work with what you got. Okay, so we'll see if we can get a layer of this stuff on this cover without making too big of a mess. And I'm just trying to put a bead all the way around, mainly focusing on the flat area, going to the inside of the bolt holes. Okay. And I think I'll put some on the housing as well. Probably don't need to, but I'd really hate to have this thing leak and have to do it all over again, so I might as well make sure I get it the first time. Okay, so I put a bead on both sides all the way around, staying to the inside of the bolt holes. That should be enough to give it a good seal. Put it up against there and just kind of slid it around a little bit to try to spread that silicone out and get a good seal across there. Now I gotta get a few bolts in here, just hand tight to hold this in place. We're not tightening this up. Just putting everything in till we feel some resistance. So I don't even know if you'd call that hand tight. Just tighten it down until the bolt makes contact. So it presses it a little bit, but not tight. I don't want to squeeze all the silicone out of there. I just want to kind of put enough pressure to flatten it out a little bit. And this is another job that, while it may be kind of a pain in the butt, it's not difficult. Of course, everything seemed to go our way. None of the bolts were rusted or froze up solid, you know, so everything was relatively easy to take apart. I don't get it that way too often, so I'll be grateful for those that I do. And luckily all the lawn mowing business and everything is done now, so it's somewhat back to some peace and quiet. If you didn't notice, I don't deal too well with noise. I know why and I know the details. It's just something within me that noise no longer something I like. I guess if I'm creating it, I usually wear ear protection, and it's not really creating any chaos when I'm doing it myself, but when it's coming from all around me and kind of crazy, I guess you could say I get a little bit triggered. But that's kind of the reason, or part of the reason, why I'm working so hard to get out of the city. I need to be where it's peaceful, my own peaceful serenity. It's good therapy. Okay, so if I look around, I can see where some of that silicone is just squeezing out the edges, and that's perfect. And I'm just gonna let that sit for a bit, start to cure, harden, and then I'll come back and tighten everything down completely, and then we'll be ready to fill her up with oil. So again, overall, not a difficult job. Something I think anybody could do if you just take the time to learn. I mean, heck, you could watch this video and there's your education, and then go do it. Not much to it. So we'll let that dry for a while, and we'll go eat some lunch. We'll come back later and put oil in her and finish it up. Okay, so we're back. We've had lunch. Now we're gonna try to fill this thing up with oil. So for this one, we've got 75 W90, and that is full synthetic gear lubricant. There's some debate out there on whether it's 75/90 or 75/140. I chose to just stick with the 75/90. I believe that's what the original spec was, and since there's a lot of debate of whether or not the spec changed, I just stuck with what I could confirm. So in order to try to make this easier, we're gonna try to cut the top out of this nozzle. Okay. And I've got a piece of hose and I'm going to try to put on it. There we go. And hopefully that'll make it a little bit easier to fill. Oh, I guess I should tighten those bolts up first. That would probably be smart. Yeah, good thing I remembered that. All I did was hand tighten these before, and so definitely want to get them all tight now. So there's different ways you can work with that Permatex gasket. Some people like to put it on and just tighten everything right away. I like to put it on, tighten it down, hand tight, and then come back and, you know, let it, when you tighten it down hand tight, you're flattening out the silicone. Let it dry a bit and then come back and cinch it all down. That way you don't end up just squeezing all the silicone out of the seal. And I don't know if you can see that or not, but as I tighten it down now, it's actually squeezing it out still, so it's not totally dry yet. But it's been about an hour, so it said 90 minutes you could actually use it. It's been an hour, so it should be somewhat dry. Couple days have gone by. I finally made it back to the store and got some more oil, so I'm back to finish up this job, filling this thing back up with oil and getting it ready to travel. So far we've put 3 quarts of oil into this thing. So we'll dump another quart in. I had read something online that it only took 2.5 quarts, but that obviously was wrong, since we're over 3, or well, we put 3 quarts in already and we're still not full. As far as knowing when it's full, basically you fill it up to the drain plug or the fill plug, and when it starts to flow back out, then it's full. Now we're actually leaning a little bit towards the plug, so I may try to overfill it just a little bit and see if I can then get the plug in and close her up, just to compensate for that lean. If you remember, I put this hose on there to simplify getting the oil in. Okay, so you can see we're running back out. Like I said, I'm gonna overfill it a little bit there. Oh. And then put the plug back in. Okay, so that's about 1/4 of the way full still, and maybe I overfilled it more than I needed to, so maybe the correct answer is 3.5 quarts. Like I say, I put a little extra in because the way we're leaning here in my driveway, wanted to make sure it's good and full. I don't think a little over full, slightly over full, is gonna hurt it. And we got the plug back in, tightened up, clean up our mess here. And this job is done. So hopefully if you watch this and you need to do the same, that gave you enough confidence to go do it. And this is my RV, but whether you're doing it on this or a pickup truck, it's basically the same. Just sometimes your fill holes and things like that are in different locations. This one's actually nice because it's got a fill hole here and a drain plug on bottom. But the drain plug takes a hex Allen wrench, and this one is a 3/8 drive to take it out. So I don't know why they're different like that, but I didn't use it because I opened it up all the way anyway, so it was easy to get everything out. But if I was just gonna change the fluid and not open it up, that'd sure be an easy way to do it. So that's kind of nice that they actually built it that way. So good to know for the future. Looking in this thing, everything was in great condition, no issues. So we just changed the fluid and sealed it back up with some Permatex gasket maker, and we're good to go. Everything looks like it is good with how the gasket laid out and everything, so I don't predict any issues with it. So if you haven't done so, be sure and like and subscribe. Help us out by following us, you know, and seeing our other videos. As always, thanks for watching, and God bless. Take care.